Hello, welcome back to the book log, everybody. Today I'm going to be talking about I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jennette McCurdy. Just have to say off the top that it feels weird to review this book at all because it seems a bit too much like I'm reviewing somebody's personal life and experiences, and that's a weird thing to do. This is a memoir about the life and upbringing of Jennette McCurdy. These are real things that happened to her and ostensibly shaped her into being a real human person, so yeah, it's objectively strange to evaluate those things in terms of how they entertain me or whatever. That said, I do think it's possible to differentiate reflecting on a person's life versus discussing a book that I have purchased and read and now I'm responding to. And so in that case, if it wasn't clear, I'm talking about this as a book, and honestly, this is all probably a moot point in the first place because I really enjoyed this whole book, and I don't have anything negative to say about it anyway. Like, presumably, a lot of people, I am familiar with Jennette McCurdy through her work as the co-star of iCarly, playing the role of Sam Puckett. I wouldn't say it was my most favorite show as a kid, but I did watch it frequently enough, and I probably saw the majority of its episodes. It's not exactly a secret at this point that Nickelodeon, as a network, has a pretty awful reputation for the treatment of its primarily children employees, and the book does touch on that, but shockingly, that ends up being the least of Jennette McCurdy's troubles detailed throughout this memoir. The primary focus of this book is, of course, Jennette's incredibly complicated, often traumatic relationship with her mother, and the way that dynamic shaped nearly every aspect of her life, from her career to her mental health to her very sense of self, basically. For much of her life, Jennette McCurdy's mother exerted an overwhelming level of control over her emotionally, physically, and psychologically, and a lot of this book consists of various examples of this. She forced Jennette into acting at a young age, placing the entire financial burden of the household on her child daughter's shoulders in pursuit of a dream that was very clearly her own, not Jennette's. Her mother micromanaged every aspect of Jennette's life, invading her privacy, constantly performing bizarre examinations of her body well into adolescence, insisting on showering her and sleeping in the same bed with her past any reasonable age for those things. Any attempt by Jennette to assert independence was met with emotional manipulation, passive aggression, or just outright rage. Her mother also had a very long battle with cancer throughout Jennette's whole life. This is how her mother died in the first place, and it only deepened the manipulation. Her mother would constantly use her illness as a tool to deflect criticism and to guilt trip and to maintain control. I think one of the most disturbing elements of this book is the way Jennette's mother actively encouraged her eating disorder, praising her for losing weight, even teaching her how to restrict calories, basically framing anorexia as a good thing that you should do. This spiraled into years of disordered eating, which eventually manifested as severe bulimia, which strongly intertwined with her OCD, and the book spends a lot of time devoted to that aspect of her life, just how harrowing and deep and insurmountable those issues were to her for so long as a direct result of her mother's behavior towards her. And just when you think you've reached the bottom of this dysfunction, more revelations surface, like the fact that she had been lied to her entire life about the identity of her biological father. One especially shocking episode involves Jennette taking a vacation with her boyfriend, which led to her mother unleashing a storm of voicemails accusing her of being a slut and a liar and a demon, even going so far as posting cruel messages on a Jennette McCurdy fan forum to expose her, and then after all of that, casually asking for money to buy a new refrigerator. It's completely ridiculous, but it's also an incredibly dark portrait of abuse and how it can be disguised as love and devotion, and the book never shies away from the full complexity of that. Alongside the heavier material, this book also has a lot of lighter, more kind of grounded moments. She writes about her friendships, various romantic relationships, and her close bond with Miranda Cosgrove, who comes across as a very kind and stabilizing figure during the chaos of the iCarly years. Jennette McCurdy, in general, just does a wonderful job of reminding the reader that she's a real, complex human being, and she writes with so much humor and warmth and personality. I really enjoyed how she discusses her experiences in therapy and the way she slowly begins to kind of unpack the root causes of her eating disorders and anxiety. Her entire story and her journey towards healing just feels very messy, and I think her willingness to show that process in such a clear-eyed way just makes the book feel so honest. She does touch a bit on the toxic work environment at Nickelodeon, which, while not the centerpiece of the memoir, does provide some disturbing glimpses into the way young performers are exploited and manipulated. McCurdy never names Dan Schneider outright. She refers to him only as the creator, presumably for legal reasons, but the implications are nonetheless obvious. He clearly behaves inappropriately towards the young cast in a variety of different ways, and Jennette McCurdy was offered $300,000 in hush money upon leaving the network, which I think speaks for itself. But again, all that stuff was surprisingly still not the worst of what she endured when compared to her mom situation. Unlike some celebrity memoirs that function as exposés, this one stays pretty tightly focused on her own personal life, which I think was a good narrative decision. I think what's most impressive to me is how Jennette McCurdy tells all of this with such clarity. She just has such a strong grasp on her own emotional interiority that it's honestly kind of inspiring. Like the notion that someone can achieve that level of self-awareness. Her voice is sharp, it's sincere, it's direct, and she has this remarkable ability to switch between humor and sadness without losing momentum. And more, I think it deals in topics that more people relate to than we think, and it's encouraging to realize that it's possible to reclaim your life when the people who were supposed to protect you, in fact, caused you the most harm. All of which makes this not only a well-written and entertaining memoir, but also a compelling, vulnerable, heartfelt story. No wonder it's been so successful. It still feels somewhat weird for me, a complete stranger, to be evaluating any of this at all, but rest assured, I'm glad my mom died has nothing but my utmost respect. I'm gonna give it a 9.